$1,500 a month? Are you serious? The words froze me in my seat. It was just a mixer on the weekend. I only showed up because my friend asked me to fill in, but I never expected to be judged so bluntly. I mean, it's actually kind of shocking. Why did you even come tonight? Honestly, you're really killing the mood. I feel like there's probably a more appropriate kind of party for someone like you, don't you think? One of the women, flashing her colorful nails, gave a snide laugh as she swirled her beer. The woman next to her glanced over at me and curled her lips in a smirk. All I did was mention that I work part-time at a convenience store, and suddenly I was treated like I didn't belong. Sorry, but could you leave? We don't really have time to waste on you. Unable to take any more, I quietly placed some bills on the table and stood up. My friend tried to stop me with a quick, "Wait up," but I no longer had the energy to stand there under those cold stares. Just as I pushed the door open to leave, Mr. Sanders, the owner of the restaurant, stepped in front of me. "Good evening, as always. You're heading out early tonight, aren't you?" He bowed gracefully with a gentle smile. The women behind me gasped at the scene. They would never have imagined that the ordinary guy who works at a convenience store was actually a special regular at this high-end restaurant. They would go on to deeply regret how they treated me. As the cold morning air crept into the store, I, Seth, rubbed my chilled fingers together as I organized the shelves near the register. My family used to run a traditional liquor shop, but we changed it into a convenience store to keep up with the times. My parents are doing their best, but we haven't really been able to set ourselves apart from the major chains, and honestly, business hasn't been great. Still, thanks to regulars from the neighborhood and local students who stop by, we've been able to keep going, just barely. After I graduated from college, I didn't go through a proper job hunt. I just stayed and helped out at the store. It's not like I never worked anywhere else. I did try joining a few regular companies, but nothing really suited me, and I couldn't stick with any of them. Before I knew it, I found myself thinking, yeah, I guess I really do feel most at ease at my family's convenience store. And now, this is where I firmly planted myself to work. Regulars who've been coming by for years and students on their way home, sharing their little worries, those small, everyday interactions have turned out to be more rewarding than I expected. And now I find real purpose in customer service. Knowing this is the store my mom and dad protected all these years makes me want to take care of it even more. I looked up when the automatic doors slid open with a chime, and in walked my childhood friend from high school, Chris. He's my partner in crime and the ultimate mood maker. He carelessly dropped a stack of fashion magazines in his arms and flashed a wide, mischievous grin. "Hey Seth, got a sec?" he said in a low voice, so I figured he had something funny to share. But the word that came out of his mouth was mixer. I immediately had a bad feeling I was getting pulled into something annoying, but I didn't have a solid reason to turn him down, so I hesitated. "Hey Seth, got a sec?" he said in a low voice, so I figured he had something funny to share. But the word that came out of his mouth was mixer. Chris has always been the life of the party type, and the kind of guy who jumped at the chance to liven things up at school events or anything else going on. So it's no surprise he'd be the one to bring up a mixer like this. "Please come, man. We're short one person, and I'm in trouble if you don't," Chris said. He didn't say it, but it was obvious. "Do it for me, come on." I called out to my dad, who was rustling around in the back kitchen, and asked, "Mind if I go out tonight?" He gave me a solid nod. "It's important to spend time with friends. Your mom and I can handle the store." I'm sure he's worried about the store's future too, but he never shows it. That's one of the reasons I respect him so much. So even though I wasn't really into it, I couldn't bring myself to say no to Chris, and I eventually gave in. "All right, fine." "Yes, thanks man. I knew you'd get it, you always do." Chris grinned from ear to ear. I gave him a half smile and returned to the register, still having no idea how the night would unfold. Later that night, I clocked out a little early and met up with Chris as we headed into the city. As we walked through the blinding lights of the downtown strip, Chris, true to form, kept talking nonstop. "Okay, so get this. There are going to be 3 receptionists at the mixer tonight. One of them is this girl named Angela. She's absolutely stunning, amazing body, and yeah, her personality's kind of flashy, but she's just insanely cute. I'm going all in on her, so back me up, alright? Keep things lively. It was clear that Angela was Chris's main target. For someone like me, who hardly ever goes to mixers, the idea of keeping things lively felt way out of my league. Look, I'm just going to drink quietly like always. I won't get in your way, but don't expect too much from me. If you're too quiet, you'll stick out like a sore thumb. Come on, help me out. It's not like I get to set these things up all the time. I had a feeling Chris was going to force the energy up, whether I liked it or not, but since it was a favor for a friend, I gave in and matched his pace. As we passed people in suits heading the other direction, I couldn't help but feel a small flicker of curiosity. What kind of women were these receptionists anyway? That faint interest made my heart beat just a little faster. The venue for the mixer turned out to be a high-end restaurant well known around town. The room we were shown to was a calm, private-style space. A chandelier sparkled overhead, and the table was decorated with elegantly fragrant flowers. The women had arrived before us, and they gave off an unmistakable aura. They were, without a doubt, the centerpieces of the room. All three had perfect posture and carried themselves beautifully, just as you'd expect from receptionists. The one who immediately caught my eye was the flashiest of them all. This had to be Angela, the girl Chris was after. Her hair was a bright color, and her nails were long and glittering. Next to Angela sat another flashy woman, though not quite as bold. She had the air of a second in command. That was Rebecca. But the woman seated at the end of the table stood out in a different way, with subtle makeup, calm expression, and an elegant presence. That was Natalie. She wore a slightly nervous smile, but her modest demeanor made an oddly strong impression on me. After a brief toast that doubled as introductions, Chris eagerly moved to sit next to the women and immediately started chatting with Angela. As for me, it was going to take some time to adjust to the lively atmosphere, so I just sipped my drink slowly. As things started to warm up, the conversation naturally turned to group date staples, work, and income. Since Chris works for a major company, he casually mentioned, "I make a pretty decent salary." Angela and Rebecca responded with enthusiastic applause and cheerful exclamations of, "That's amazing." Watching the scene unfold made me feel increasingly out of place. Eventually, Angela turned her attention toward me. "So Seth, what kind of work do you do?" she asked, turning away from her lively conversation with Chris and flashing me a full, beaming smile. Feeling her eyes on me, I gave a slight shrug and answered, "Me? My family runs a convenience store, so I help out there part-time." "Wait, seriously? Are you like the owner or something? What's your monthly income?" "About $1,500 a month, I guess." That's the truth, and I saw no reason to hide it. But the moment I said it, Angela's expression visibly changed. The smile that had just moments ago been cheerfully saying, "Wow, that's amazing," vanished from her lips, and a cold, tense air settled over the table. Across from me, Rebecca stopped mid-sip and looked up. "You're kidding, right? $1,500 a month?" "Yeah, it's the family business, and I'm not struggling, so I make do." When I said that, Angela gave me a look of outright mockery and exchanged a glance with Rebecca before letting out a small, stifled laugh. It seemed like they were having a private conversation through their eyes. I mean, wow, that's kind of shocking. Guys we usually date make at least double that at a minimum, you know? Rebecca, with a hint of laughter in her voice, added, "Totally. I mean, if we're going to spend time with someone, future potential kind of matters, right? Being looked down on so blatantly, it would be a lie to say it didn't bother me. Isn't this kind of a waste of time? Sorry, but we're not really looking for someone like that." Angela set her glass down and ran her fingers through her hair as she declared it bluntly. "Besides, to be honest, you're kind of bringing down the vibe. I'm sure there's a different kind of party that's more your level." Next to her, Rebecca gave a little shrug, playing the observer. "Yeah, this is awkward." she muttered with a smirk. A cold silence blanketed the table. When I glanced around, I saw that Natalie was looking down with an apologetic expression. It was clear from her face that she didn't agree with the other two, but standing up to them must have been difficult. I looked at Angela and Rebecca again, so blatant in their contempt, and let out a deep breath as I made up my mind to leave. "All right, I'll get out of your way. Sorry to have bothered you." I spoke calmly but firmly as I pulled back my chair. Leaving my glass behind, I grabbed my coat and turned toward the door without looking back. Just then, Chris finally raised his voice in a panic. "Hey Seth, wait, come on. Angela, don't you think that was a bit much?" In response to Chris's words, Angela turned her head away and whispered, "No way, that's just not acceptable." Rebecca piled on, saying in a tone that made her disdain obvious, "Seriously, he had no clue how to read the room." I shot Chris a glance that said, "Don't worry about it," and then pushed open the door without hesitation. From behind, I could hear Chris apologizing quietly, saying sorry, but I didn't look back. At that moment, "Oh Seth, are you heading home already?" Mr. Sanders, the owner of the restaurant, greeted me with a gentle smile and bowed his head. "It seems you didn't have much time with us today. Thank you as always for your continued support. Please take your time and enjoy your meal the next time you visit." I stopped in my tracks without thinking. No, I should be the one apologizing for leaving so suddenly. "Something came up," I said, giving a light bow. With his usual calm tone, Mr. Sanders added, "If you ever need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. We look forward to continuing our relationship for many years to come." I returned the bow and tried to walk past him. But Angela, who had seen the scene unfold, suddenly called out in a panicked voice, Wait a second, Seth." Her eyes were wide as she looked back and forth between Mr. Sanders and me, clearly confused. "Hey, did Mr. Sanders just call you Seth? What's your relationship with him?" "It's really not a big deal. I just come here often enough that he remembers my face." I tried to brush it off with those words, but it seemed Angela wasn't convinced at all. She gave my arm a light tug and raised her voice slightly. "Come on, that's not it. The way he treated you just now, anyone could see it was special treatment." Then, something completely unexpected came out of Chris's mouth. "Well, since the topic's out there, this guy's actually one of the major shareholders in this restaurant." I knew Chris had a habit of saying too much, but I didn't expect him to reveal that here and now. I thought to myself, he really didn't need to say that, as I watched the expressions on the three women's faces change instantly. Angela and Rebecca especially froze like they'd just been struck by lightning. "Wait, a major shareholder? What does that mean? That can't be true, right?" Rebecca's eyes darted around the room, unable to hide her confusion. Angela, on the other hand, was silent for a moment, then looked at me with pleading eyes. Just a little while ago, that same mouth had coldly told me, $1,500 a month? You should leave. And now it was trembling as it asked, "Hey, is it true?" Well, it's not a lie. When things got tough for my family, I started thinking about how I could support them. That's when I realized I had no choice but to learn about investing. It wasn't easy at first. I started investing after graduating from college. I had tried working at regular companies, but none of the jobs lasted. I began searching for a way to earn a living on my own. I studied books, gathered information online, and made plenty of mistakes. But after enough trial and error, I eventually figured out how to earn stable returns, and I became a shareholder in several corporate groups. This restaurant just happens to be one of them. I never planned to make a big deal out of it, but with Chris revealing everything today, there was no point in hiding it anymore. "So, investing, like in stocks and stuff?" Angela still seemed unable to fully grasp what was happening and looked up at me, asking quietly. There was no trace of her earlier arrogance in her expression. Instead, her eyes revealed panic, anxiety, and maybe even a hint of regret, like she was realizing she may have just let a valuable opportunity slip through her fingers. Watching them struggle to make sense of it all, Chris gave a crooked smile and added a few more words. "Oh, and by the way, I think he's also one of the top shareholders in your company. There are rumors inside the office that he's even been giving input on management strategies, right? What? Really? Angela and Rebecca stood there with their mouths open, unable to speak. Neither of them seemed capable of processing the situation, and they just repeated the same words over and over. They never imagined that the guy they looked down on could actually hold influence over their own workplace. I'm telling you, this guy's full of interesting stories. You could ask him about anything. These days, he makes way more than I ever could. Chris laughed proudly as he patted me hard on the shoulder. Just earlier, he had looked a bit uncomfortable, but now he seemed a little proud. Meanwhile, Angela and Rebecca were completely deflated. Hey Seth, if it's okay, would you mind staying to talk a little longer? I think we may have misunderstood you earlier. Angela spoke hesitantly, forcing a smile that was clearly meant to win me over. Rebecca quickly chimed in, saying, Yeah, I think I was just a little tipsy earlier. You know? The sudden shift in attitude was so blatant, I could see Chris from the corner of my eye trying desperately not to burst out laughing. It was clear he was reaching his limit, holding back his amusement at how quickly they had changed their tune. Just minutes ago, Angela and Rebecca had been speaking with such arrogance, and now they were acting like completely different people, suddenly all smiles and charm. Wow, Seth, you're really something. I think we were kind of rude earlier because we'd had a little too much to drink. If you're free, would you want to go to one more place with us? Angela tried frantically to keep the conversation going, and Rebecca quickly joined in, nodding as she added, Yeah, it's still early, and I was thinking I'd like to keep drinking with you. The two of them suddenly putting on such sweet voices made Chris's face twist again, clearly on the verge of laughing out loud. Anyone watching would understand the urge to shout, Weren't you the one who told me to go home? I gave a wry smile, but didn't let their sugary looks get to me. I answered plainly and without emotion. Sorry, but I'm heading home. I've got something to take care of. Don't say that. Come on, it's a rare chance to hang out like this. The two of them kept trying to press me, but I shook my head. Honestly, there was no reason to keep drinking with them, and I had already seen enough to understand their true nature. No matter how nicely they tried to cover it up now, a drink that had gone bitter would never taste good again. Just then, Chris stepped in to help, saying, Well, if he says he's done, then that's that, gently calming the two down. Thanks to that, Angela and Rebecca finally seemed to give up on pushing any further. I quickly slipped my arms into my coat and simply said, Take care, before heading straight for the door. As I stepped outside and felt the cool night breeze on my face, I let out a quiet sigh of relief. That's when I heard a soft voice from behind and instinctively turned around. Seth, do you have a minute? The voice belonged to Natalie. She was the only one during the mixer who had seemed concerned about me, modest in her appearance and behavior. Natalie approached me hesitantly, almost apologetically. I'm sorry. I couldn't say anything back there, but I didn't like how they were acting. As I watched her fumble for the right words, eyes cast slightly downward, I felt a quiet warmth in my chest. Unlike those who only cared about appearance or status, Natalie gave off a sense of genuine sincerity. I slowly shook my head and gave a faint smile. It's okay, really. You don't have to apologize. Actually, I'm kind of grateful. That whole situation ended up being a good lesson in human behavior. Hearing that, Natalie looked relieved, her expression softening noticeably. There was no awkwardness between us. As the night breeze passed gently between us, the air, though cold, somehow felt a little kinder. Natalie let out a small breath and looked up into my face again, as if gathering her courage. There was a certain determination in her eyes. Actually, I've been a little curious about investing. If it's not too much trouble, would you mind teaching me sometime? Sure, if it's within what I can explain. Just know that jumping in with a lot of money right away is risky, so we should probably start by talking about that kind of thing first. When I said that, Natalie's face lit up. Thank you, I'm really happy to hear that. Before we knew it, we had naturally taken out our phones and exchanged contact information. She seemed a bit embarrassed, saying, "Sorry for doing this here of all places, but honestly, I was happy about it." As I walked home after parting ways with Natalie, I found myself looking down at her contact information on my screen, feeling strangely uplifted. Even after everything that happened at that flashy table, I could honestly say, it wasn't such a bad night after all. The next morning, I was standing at the convenience store counter as usual when the automatic door slid open. I turned toward the sound, and to my surprise, in walked Angela. Her hair was loosely curled, and her flashy outfit was just as bold as the night before. In the morning sunlight streaming into the store, she stood out even more. To be honest, I had never imagined she would show up here, so I was caught off guard for a moment. "So this is your family's convenience store, Seth? I had no idea it was so close to our office." Angela, now a far cry from the arrogant woman she had been, was suddenly talking to me in an overly friendly tone. As she looked around the store, she let out an almost exaggerated gasp of surprise, saying, "I had no idea it was this close to our office building. About last night, I think I drank a little too much. I've been reflecting on it, and I feel like I said some rude things. I'm really sorry." Her sudden change in attitude threw me off a bit. Since she had called me a waste of time at the mixer just the night before, I wasn't sure how to react now that she was apologizing to my face. "Well, it was just a party after all," I replied casually, and Angela smiled, picking up one of the drinks displayed near the register. "Since I'm here, I figured I might as well buy something. I heard the coffee's good here, right?" "Yeah, we just upgraded the machine recently, so I think it tastes pretty good." Right then, my mom, who had been stocking shelves in the back, stepped out. "Welcome," she said warmly. She's always been good with people, and even with strangers, she treats them kindly. Now, she greeted Angela with her usual cheerful smile. "Oh, is she someone you know?" my mom asked, and I responded with a vague smile. "Yeah, just someone I kind of know," I said, but Angela quickly cut in. "Don't say someone I know, we're friends, right?" Hearing that, my mom's eyes lit up with delight, and she responded even more cheerfully. Well, sounds like you two are getting along nicely." After I rang her up and handed her the change, Angela looked at me with a steady gaze. "I hope we get to talk more sometime soon, Seth. I mean, not like the other night when I'd had too much to drink. If you're free, maybe we could grab a coffee or something." "Yeah, maybe, if the timing works out. I've got shifts, so I might not have a lot of free time," I replied, offering a non-committal smile. Seeming satisfied with that, Angela took her coffee cup and said, "All right, see you then," before leaving the store. My mom watched her go and commented, "She's a nice girl. You should be a little gentler with her, you know." "Yeah, maybe," I said with a forced smile as I closed the register, feeling a bit conflicted. I wasn't sure what was sincere and what was just politeness, but I figured maybe it was thanks to my mom that things didn't turn into a total rejection. After that little exchange, the usual quiet atmosphere returned to the store. As I restocked the drinks, I found myself thinking, honestly, I kind of hope she doesn't come back too often. As I heard my mom's voice behind me gently reminding me, "Be sure to treat your customers well," I quietly went back to arranging the items on the shelf next to the register. It felt like things might stay a little unsettled for a while. And as I thought that, I realized I was also feeling strangely light on my feet. Ever since Natalie contacted me saying, "I want to learn about stocks," we've been meeting at a cafe more and more often. At first, I was honestly surprised and unsure. Why would she want me to teach her? But Natalie wasn't just relying on me blindly. She read books, researched online, and came with neatly written notes full of questions. Seeing that kind of dedication made me want to teach her even more seriously. When I explained things like how to read charts or the difference between long-term investments and short-term trading, she'd listen intently and say, "I see," with genuine curiosity. She nodded repeatedly while taking notes, and that encouraged me to explain things even more clearly. I'm not the type to show off knowledge or lecture people, but her level of interest made it easy to get carried away. Today again, I met Natalie after her shift at our usual cafe. It wasn't a fancy restaurant or a trendy upscale place, just a classic old-fashioned chain cafe. I'm no gourmet who compares coffee flavors, and honestly, I like how budget-friendly it is. Natalie smiled and said, "The prices here are reasonable, and it's always quiet. It's a comfortable place," which made me keep picking the same cafe every time. She seemed amused by my modest preferences, and, while twirling her pen, said with a chuckle, "Seth, you really don't come across as a rich guy at all." Surprised, I asked, "What do you mean?" And she gave a small, shy smile. "Well, because of my job as a receptionist, I meet a lot of wealthy people. Not all of them, of course, but many tend to act superior or just talk about brands all the time. You're not like that at all. So I feel kind of comfortable around you." Hearing that, I gave a bit of a wry smile and shrugged. It's true that I've made some money through investing, but I've never had any interest in luxury clothes or flashy possessions. Even today, I was wearing jeans and a hoodie. To a stranger, I probably just looked like a part-timer. That's exactly why these down-to-earth cafe visits felt right for me. When people find out who I am, a lot of them suddenly change their attitude. Some get close just for the money, and others pretend not to care, but then disappear. That's why I try not to talk about it much. I mean, having money doesn't make you special or anything. As I finished saying that, Natalie closed her notebook and smiled. Her expression was a little softer now, different from when she had been asking serious investment questions earlier. Looking around the cafe, she spoke warmly. "I think that's the better way to be. You don't seem showy or shallow. Actually, I kind of like that about you." For a moment, my mind went completely blank. I didn't know how to respond, and I could feel my cheeks getting warm. Blushing, Natalie tucked her hair behind her ear and added with a bashful laugh, "Sorry, I didn't mean to say that out loud. It just slipped." In the quiet cafe, the aroma of coffee suddenly felt sharper than usual. I tried to find the right words to say, but my heart was pounding too fast for me to come up with a proper response. Instead, a smile slipped out on its own. "I'm in trouble. What kind of face am I supposed to make right now? Maybe I'm easier to read than I thought." Feeling like I couldn't handle the awkwardness any longer, I quickly opened my mouth to change the subject. "So hey, I heard something about the company you work for making some big changes lately. I heard it through the grapevine since I hold some of their stock. It's something about a reorganization around the reception department. Do you know anything about that?" Even I had to admit it was a pretty clumsy attempt at switching topics, but I just wanted to calm my racing heart. Oh yeah, I think. There was some talk about that, but they haven't really explained much to everyone yet, so I don't know the details myself." She slipped the pen she was holding into the crease of her notebook and hunched her shoulders slightly as she said, "Sorry, I couldn't really give you a proper answer. No, I'm the one who suddenly changed the subject." My mind kind of went blank for a second there. When I said that, Natalie smiled and softly said, "He." The words she had said earlier, "I like that about you," still lingered gently in the air between us, like a secret only we shared. "Hey, let's talk again sometime soon. I mean, about investing too, of course." I said it quietly, and Natalie gave a small nod. She raised her cup to her mouth, as if trying to hide the faint redness in her cheeks. A few weeks passed. While working part-time at the convenience store and occasionally meeting Natalie at a cafe in the evenings, I found we were talking more and more often without even noticing. Lately, we'd even started saying things like, "Let's go somewhere together next time," and every day felt just a little more exciting. Then one night, my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen, and it was a call from Chris. "Hey, what's up?" I said as I answered, and right away he came in hot. "Yo, Seth. How have you been? I've got some good news, guess what? I've been going on dates with Angela." Despite how disastrous that mixer had been, it sounded like Chris had somehow gotten close with Angela after all. I could practically hear the excitement in his voice, and it made me feel a little embarrassed just listening. "That's great. Good for you. Right? And you got Natalie's contact information at that party, didn't you?" How's that going? He was typical Chris, blunt as ever. I chuckled and answered honestly. Yeah, we've been going out for meals now and then. For real? Damn man, I owe you one. You owe me so much. I could just picture him on the other end of the line, grinning proudly with his chest puffed out. Looking back, the mixer had been a miss, but if it led me to meet Natalie, then maybe it had all been worth it. The next morning, while I was working the morning shift at the convenience store, I spotted a familiar flash of bright hair and long nails. It was Angela. Seth, long time no see. I'm back again. She leaned on the counter with her chin in her hand, giving me a deliberately cute upward glance. Welcome. Coffee today? Not today. I just came to chat a bit. It was the same old slick attitude. So, how are things with Chris? You two are dating, right? To my surprise, Angela shook her head without hesitation. What? No, we're not dating. We just grab dinner now and then. My real interest is you, Seth. The sudden and blatant switch left me speechless. She had no shame saying that to the same guy she'd mocked at the mixer. Completely ignoring how I felt, Angela leaned in and said, Hey, do you have a little time? Maybe we could grab a drink or something. I'm working right now, so no, I replied firmly. Then, her tone dropped suddenly. Hey, I heard you've been seeing Natalie a lot lately. Just a little heads up, you should be careful around her. Her words made my brow furrow. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, come on. It's exactly what it sounds like. She's a liar, you know. That stuff about working at a company and being into investing, all of it's fake. Angela's eyes shimmered with a strange, almost seductive light. I couldn't tell whether what she was saying was true or not, but my gut told me whatever it wasn't anything good. Still, she pressed on, her words sharp and relentless. Natalie quit her job, you know? About a year ago. But she still goes to tons of mixers just to meet rich guys. Angela looked proud as she said it, and frankly, the sight was almost laughable. But the phrase, quit her job, caught in my chest. I can't believe that. You don't have to, but sooner or later, she's going to start asking you for money. She'll probably say something like, my little sister's sick, or whatever. Total lie. But hey, believe what you want. Angela ended with a sharp, just thought I'd warn you, and walked out of the store. As the door closed behind her, she glanced back with a thin, smirking smile that left a sour, uneasy feeling in the air. Since then, I hadn't been able to get her words out of my head. Natalie quit her job? She'd never mentioned anything like that. In fact, I'd heard her complain many times about how things are so busy at the reception desk, and we often met at the cafe around what she said was the end of her workday. Still, it was true that I'd never asked her much about her actual workplace. Our conversations were always casual, and even when she said things like, I got scolded by a customer today, she rarely ever mentioned her company's name or any coworkers. No, that can't be true. Angela's not someone I can trust. After everything she said to me, there's no way I'd take her words at face value. Even as I tried to convince myself, a small seed of doubt had begun to grow in the back of my mind. At the very least, there was a way to find out the truth. The next day, feeling reluctant, I called the company Natalie had told me she worked at. When the receptionist answered, I asked, Is Natalie available? There was a brief pause, filled with a hold tone. It was only a few seconds, but it felt oddly long. As my heart started to beat faster, a flat voice returned on the other end. There's no one by that name currently working here. Are you referring to Natalie who used to work at the front desk? If so, she left the company about a year ago. My mind went completely blank for a moment. She left? Yes, according to our records, she resigned around last spring. The front desk is now handled by someone else. Even after I hung up, I stood frozen beside the register for a while. I couldn't believe it, but Angela had been right. Natalie had quit her job a long time ago. The truth left my mind spinning in confusion. What were all those stories she told me about things happening at work, or being too busy to meet because of her job? If all of that was a lie, then why? What was the reason? A tug of war began in my chest between the part of me that wanted to believe her and the part that couldn't ignore the doubt. Should I ask her about it directly? Or I couldn't focus on my work at all that day. That night, I was supposed to meet Natalie at our usual cafe to talk about investing. But she looked uncharacteristically downcast, and she didn't seem to be able to focus. I'm sorry, I just can't seem to get in the right headspace today. I think I'll head home early. Looking down as she spoke, she avoided my eyes. I said gently, "Then let me walk you to the station." She hesitated for a moment, then gave a faint smile. "Thank you." We walked side by side down a quiet street after leaving the cafe. But the silence lingered. I couldn't figure out what to say. The wind blew through the gap in my shirt, sending a chill down my back. When I glanced to the side, I saw Natalie clutching a handkerchief and dabbing at her eyes. "Natalie, what's wrong? Did something happen?" There were 1,000 things I wanted to ask. But more than anything, seeing her on the verge of tears concerned me the most. "I'm sorry. I wasn't planning to say anything." But she trailed off and fell silent again. Eventually, she began to speak in a quiet, subdued voice. "I have a younger sister. Our parents passed away when we were little, so it's just been the two of us for a long time. She's in the hospital right now. The doctor said she might not have much time left. She needs surgery right away, but it's really expensive, and insurance won't cover all of it. I don't have any family to rely on. So in the end, I have to come up with the money myself." She forced a pained smile and brought her handkerchief back to her eyes. "I thought if I invested, I might be able to grow the money a little, but it still isn't enough." "I see. That sounds really tough." That was all I could manage to say. Seeing her in tears, I couldn't bring myself to interrogate her. Natalie lowered her eyes and continued in a trembling voice. "I know it's wrong to ask someone I've only just met, but would you be willing to lend me some money? I promise I'll work and pay you back." A strange feeling stirred deep in my chest. Watching her cry made me want to help her, no matter what. But at the same time, doubt crept in. Was this really the right thing to do? I bit my lip and asked the question that had been weighing on me. "Is that really true? I mean, how are you going to pay me back? You don't even work there anymore, right?" Natalie flinched. Her reaction made it obvious that she was shaken. "Why? How did you know that?" Her tearful voice wavered as she spoke. I tried to stay calm, but my words came out with more emotion than I expected. "Angela told me. She said you quit your job. You've been hiding it from me, haven't you? Did you get close to me just for my money?" Even as I said it, I hated how harsh it sounded. But once doubt takes hold, it's hard to shake it. Natalie shook her head desperately. "No, that's not it at all." I couldn't tell anymore whether her words were true or not. "Then why did you lie to me? If there's another reason, just tell me." I felt my voice rise unintentionally. Natalie looked down, unable to meet my eyes, her lips trembling. "I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry." Crying, she turned and ran off. I wanted to chase after her, but my body wouldn't move. In the tense silence, her figure grew smaller and smaller as she walked away. Carried off by the cold wind, Natalie disappeared into the night. Then, weeks passed. I continued working at the convenience store, checking stock news during my breaks, just like always. But something still stuck in my chest. I couldn't get Natalie out of my mind. One evening after closing up shop, Chris dropped by. He came in with the night breeze, clapped me firmly on the shoulder, and noticing the look on my face, spoke with concern. "Hey Seth, you haven't heard from her since then, have you?" "Yeah, not a word." I gave a faint smile. Chris looked a little apologetic as he lowered his eyes, then continued in a gently reassuring tone. "I heard some things too. Rumors, you know. I think it's for the best that you split. There's a real chance she was just after your money. Not that she seemed like the type, honestly." I couldn't bring myself to believe Natalie was someone who only cared about money. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe it. Chris clapped his hands together, and forced a laugh, trying to break the heavy mood. Alright then, how about we get your spirits up with another mixer? I'll set up a new one for you. Come on, what do you say? Nah, I'm not really in the mood for that. I thought I'd turned him down. But in the end, I got talked into it with lines like, come on, it'll be a nice distraction. And you've got to keep up with your guy friends. So a few days later, I found myself at another mixer. The place was a slightly stylish dining bar. It was 3 guys, including me, and 3 women who worked at the same company as Angela, more of a casual get-together than a serious mixer. While I absent-mindedly sipped my drink, one of the women suddenly said, "Oh, that reminds me. I heard you're into Angela, right? You might want to think twice about that." Chris clearly tensed up when he heard that. He probably hadn't done a great job hiding the fact that he'd been seeing her for meals lately. The women didn't miss his reaction and followed up with more. Angela's pretty and all, and she's friendly, but there are a lot of rumors about how she uses guys. You might get burned if you get too close. You okay with that? Chris, who had been laughing and having fun just moments ago, could only respond with a vague, "Really? She's not a bad person, I guess. But everyone in the office says you've got to watch out when it comes to her and guys." With their blunt talk laid out on the table, Chris could only keep nodding along with an uncomfortable look. The mixer was lively enough on the surface, but both Chris and I had a hard time settling into it after that. She just goes around talking to every guy she can, and if things don't go her way, she lashes out. Do you know how many people quit because of her? I heard Natalie was one of them. Natalie. My heart skipped a beat. As I listened with a tense expression, she looked at me and asked, "Do you want to know the details?" "Yeah." I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady, and she set her glass down before continuing. "Angela has this weird confidence, like any guy I go after is mine. But one of the guys she liked ended up showing interest in Natalie instead. After that, Angela totally lost it, got jealous, and started harassing Natalie. She even tattled to the higher-ups, made it seem like Natalie was the problem." "So, that's why Natalie quit?" "Yeah, she had no choice in the end. I heard she had some family stuff going on and couldn't work full-time. She was doing her best with shorter shifts and leaving on time when she had to, but Angela reported her for having a bad attitude at work. I mean, who could put up with that?" Without thinking, I said aloud, "Natalie's family stuff." "Wait, don't tell me." The woman shrugged and added, "Her little sister's seriously ill, I think. The treatment and hospital bills are rough." Even with all that, Natalie was working hard. And then she got driven out like that. Before I realized it, I had set my glass down and stood up. Sorry, I've got to go." I heard people behind me saying, "Wait, what's going on?" But I didn't stop. I ran out of the dining bar. I couldn't suppress the surge of urgency in my chest. Her sick sister, the family circumstances, and why she said she wanted to learn investing, everything lined up. If Natalie really quit because of Angela's harassment, then I had completely misunderstood her. I doubted her, accused her of lying, and didn't give her a chance to explain. Then I had turned my back on her when she was crying. The thought of that was suddenly unbearable. The winter night wind blurred my vision as I ran through the city, searching for Natalie. I didn't know where she was, but I had to find her. I had to hear her out and really listen. That one thought drove me as I kept running through the glowing city streets. "Natalie, where are you?" I ran through the night streets toward the place where she was supposed to be, hoping to earn back her trust. The winter air turned every breath white, and the headlights of passing cars glowed like smears across the pavement. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst as I sprinted through the quiet streets. Earlier at the mixer, I had asked about the hospital where Natalie's sister was staying. I had no way of knowing for sure if the information was correct, but I had to take the chance. Just barely making it in before the end of visiting hours, I scanned the hospital directory with desperate eyes and searched for the ward. In a quiet corner of an empty hallway, I spotted a familiar figure from behind. There was a petite woman in a black coat. Her shoulder-length hair trembled slightly. There was no doubt, and it was Natalie. "Natalie," I called out without thinking. She looked up in surprise. "Seth, what are you doing here?" Still out of breath, I walked straight toward her. "I'm sorry for showing up like this out of the blue, but there's something I had to tell you. I just couldn't let it go." Before I realized it, my hand had reached out gently to her trembling shoulder. Natalie looked at me with confused, tearful eyes. Standing by the wall of the hospital hallway, I let out a long breath. "I'm sorry, I didn't believe you." The words came spilling out like a dam had burst. "You had a reason for hiding that you left your job, didn't you? And instead of listening, I just accused you, like you only got close to me for money. I hurt you when I should have trusted you. I'm so sorry I didn't let you explain." Natalie bit her lip and lowered her eyes. There was a mix of sadness and relief in her expression. Our shadows stretched faintly along the plain white hospital wall. I couldn't say it. I was scared about why I left the company, my sister's surgery, and the cost. "I thought if I told you I needed money, you'd think I was just after your wallet. We were finally getting close, and I didn't want you to hate me." "Natalie, my family was never well off. After our parents died, it was just me and my sister, and I worked hard to support us. But full-time hours at the reception job weren't an option, so I made it work however I could. Then everything with Angela happened, and I was pushed out. But even then, I couldn't bring myself to tell you I quit because I needed to cover my sister's surgery." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Even after I quit, Angela would still contact me now and then, asking me to come to mixers because they were short on women. I knew she was just using me, but I couldn't say no. I was scared she'd try to get back at me again. But I'm plain, right? I figured I made the perfect contrast. Standing next to her only made her shine more." Her words made my chest tighten painfully. I should have seen her pain and offered her support before I started doubting her. But instead of offering support, I let my fear and frustration take over and ended up asking the worst possible question. Was it all about the money? That's why this time, no matter what, I want to believe her. "I'm really sorry, Natalie. I'll never doubt you again. If you're struggling, whatever it is, let me help. Please let me do something." As I said that, a tear finally rolled down her cheek. She held back a sob and shook her head slightly. "But I don't have any way to pay you back. I quit my job. Even if my sister's surgery goes well, I'll have to start over from scratch. I don't have a fancy degree or impressive career. I can't give anything back to you, Seth." "Then let me give, not lend. I'm not expecting anything in return. I'd rather just help if I can. But knowing you, you'd only accept it if I called it a loan." I let out a faint smile, and Natalie's lips trembled as she murmured, "But." Still, I could see a trace of relief in her eyes. She was probably still hesitating, worried that accepting money would make her look like someone just chasing wealth. "And besides, I think you can go back to your old job." "Ha!" She looked up at me with wide, tearful eyes. I nodded slowly. The next day, I left work at the convenience store early and headed straight to Angela's office, ready to confront her. Just outside the entrance, I spotted her. "Seth, what are you doing here?" She noticed me right away. "I need to talk to you. Do you have a minute?" As I spoke, Angela tilted her head and narrowed her eyes with a smirk. "Oh, you came all this way just to see me? So you did choose me after all?" She was as carefree as ever, but I ignored her flirty tone and motioned for us to move to a quiet plaza beside the building where there were fewer people. Standing by a bench, she flicked her hair and looked at me. "So? What's this about?" "It's about Natalie. I heard why she left the company. I heard what you did to her. And honestly, that kind of harassment, it's not something I can overlook." For a moment, Angela's face froze. But then she twisted her mouth into a mocking smile. "Oh, that? What, did she go crying to you? Please, that quiet little thing was always hopeless. She had no place here, and that's her fault." "No, it wasn't her fault. It was yours. You got jealous because a guy you were after liked Natalie, so you sabotaged her with lies. That's not just cruel, and it's a clear violation of workplace conduct. At that, Angela's expression grew sharp, and she stepped forward, her heels clacking angrily on the pavement. What? Now you're acting like I'm the villain. If someone snatched a guy I had my eyes on, of course I'd be mad. She deserved a little payback. Her shameless, defiant attitude made my irritation flare up, but I forced myself to keep it in check. In terms of company compliance, your actions are a serious offense. What you did amounts to power harassment, defamation, even falsifying workplace reports. If I, as a shareholder, bring this to the board or the compliance committee, imagine how that'll go for you. What, you think being a shareholder means you can easily? Angela tried to laugh it off dramatically, but I could tell her voice was trembling just slightly. Want to see how easy it really is? You know better than anyone how much your company fears internal whistleblowing and bad publicity. And it's not just me. Natalie has the proof, screenshots of your messages, and even the suspicious edits made to her timesheets. She kept everything. What? No way. Angela's eyes widened in shock. Yes, Natalie had quietly saved some of their exchanges in case things got too out of hand. When she left the company, she had hoped that what happened to her would never be repeated and planned to speak out when the time was right. But with her sister hospitalized and fearing Angela's retaliation, she'd kept it all hidden until now. Angela, the harassment you called just a little payback, that's not something that can be forgiven. Depending on how things go, it could lead to defamation charges, interference with business operations, and even legal action. Wait a second. Isn't that a little much? I was just trying to give her a little advice, that's all. Advice? Please. You lied to your manager, telling them Natalie had a bad attitude and was flirting with guys all over the office. None of it was true. You basically forced her out. I mean, Angela averted her eyes, looking cornered. Sure, she probably hadn't said outright in writing that she wanted Natalie fired, but with the messages she sent and her manipulative behavior, the circumstantial evidence was piling up. I don't want revenge, Angela. That's not what this is about. But if you keep doing whatever you want, Natalie won't ever get justice. What you did also seriously damages your company's image. If I bring this up to the board and the compliance committee, this won't just blow over. As I said that, I saw the panic finally appear in her eyes. The arrogance she'd always carried with her had completely vanished. She bit her lip and spoke in a trembling voice. Are you serious right now? Why would you go this far? You're just a convenience store clerk, aren't you? Her voice still carried that same disdain from the mixer, the tone she used when she'd looked down on me. I'm just a convenience store clerk, but I'm also a major shareholder in your company. And more importantly, I care about Natalie. I'll use everything I've got to protect her. So if you understand that, stay away from her from now on. With that, I turned my back and walked away. Behind me, Angela collapsed onto the pavement, letting out a weak groan. This was the moment when all the mocking, the manipulation, and the cruelty she'd dished out came back to her. A few days after the confrontation, I got an official message from a representative at the company. Thanks to the evidence Natalie had saved and the testimonies from others, disciplinary action against Angela was being formally considered. The opinion report I submitted as a major shareholder, requesting an internal review on the grounds of wrongful dismissal, was also taken seriously. As a result, the company's compliance committee launched an investigation, and a board meeting was held. What was revealed during the meeting was Angela's malicious meddling in workplace relationships and her manipulation of Natalie's work attendance records. And there was a wealth of evidence to support every claim. There was no way to deny the facts. After several days of review, the company decided to issue a strict punishment that Angela would be terminated for cause. At the same time, the company issued a formal apology to Natalie, who had been effectively forced to resign under circumstances close to wrongful dismissal, and confirmed their decision to reinstate her. It was clear the company also wanted to avoid any further scandal. After receiving the news, Angela was called in by her supervisor while she was gathering her belongings, and the official decision was delivered. She kept a stiff expression, lowering her eyes as she silently accepted the documents. The atmosphere in the room was heavy with discomfort. But just before she left, hand resting on the doorknob, she whispered, "I was jealous of her. I thought the only way I could be valued was by looking flashy, and seeing someone like Natalie, someone so plain, being treated with care, it just made me bitter." Her manager could only watch in silence as Angela stepped into the hallway. She paused near the elevator, clutching the papers tightly, and muttered to herself, "I'm such an idiot. I never thought it had come to this." It was too late for regret to change the outcome. But maybe she had started to see her mistakes. Maybe this was the beginning of her finally facing herself, not just her image. By the time she exited the building, the dry winter wind brushed her cheek. Angela paused, opened her tightly shut eyes, and quietly said, "If I could start over, I think I'd want to, but I don't know how far I can go." As she whispered and bit her lip, the arrogance she once carried had all but faded, replaced by what looked like a faint spark of a desire to change. Meanwhile, Natalie received an official apology from the company's HR department, and the path to her reinstatement was opened. Though hesitant at first, she eventually accepted, quietly but firmly. "I want to start over properly. I don't want to leave things unfinished like that." She said this as she wiped away her tears and slowly began to regain her smile. On top of that, her younger sister's surgery was a success, and we managed to cover the high medical expenses with a temporary loan from me. Of course, Natalie insisted, "I'll pay it back little by little through my work," and she's already started doing just that. "Thank you for everything." Natalie said this as she shed tears once again. "It's okay. I really admire how hard you work for your family. To be honest, I never even thought of it as a loan." More than anything, seeing her smile with genuine happiness was the greatest reward I could ask for. Natalie stood beside me with a gentle expression, gazing at the early winter sky through the window of her sister's hospital room. The surgery had gone well, and her sister's rehabilitation was progressing smoothly. Though Natalie was busy balancing her job with taking care of her sister, she kept pushing forward with all her strength. Being able to support her as she faced life head-on was what brought me the most joy. Then one evening, while I was closing up the convenience store, Chris came rushing in once again, completely out of breath. He spread his arms wide over the counter and exclaimed, "You've got to hear this," as if he were about to announce some major breaking news. "Seth, I've got another mixer lined up, but we're short on guys. Can you help me out?" "Oh, come on, not again. You never learn, do you?" I replied with an exasperated look, and Chris rubbed his temple with a sheepish grin. "Come on, it's not like the last one. This time, it's more down to earth. They are dental hygienists and nurses. Super chill vibe. Please? If we can't fill the seats, the whole thing's off." "No, Seth won't be going." The voice was soft, but carried unmistakable strength. Before we even noticed, Natalie had walked into the store. Chris looked completely caught off guard. "Wait, just like that? So blunt?" he said, scratching his head. "I'm sorry, Chris. Seth is someone really important to me now, and I just don't feel comfortable with him going to a mixer with strangers." Natalie was modest in her tone, but she expressed her feelings clearly. There was a quiet strength in her words that showed she had no intention of backing down. "Yeah, I get it. Makes sense. You two are dating, after all." Chris gave a wry smile, showing a reluctant acceptance. And finally, he threw his hands dramatically over his head and shrugged his shoulders, groaning, "Man, now I've got to find another guy again. Well, guess I'll just have to drag one of my coworkers into it. You two are seriously lovey-dovey." "Lovey-dovey? That's a bit much." I started to protest instinctively, but when I glanced over at Natalie, she was smiling with a faint blush on her cheeks. That smile looked so full of happiness, it made me feel a little embarrassed too. After Chris left, muttering and dragging his feet, the quiet calm of the store returned. As I lowered the shutters and turned off the lights, Natalie stood beside me with a small smile. "You get invited to these mixers a lot, huh?" even after what happened last time. Well, Chris loves a party. I guess he never gets tired of it. Natalie chuckled softly at my shrug. As we walked down the quiet night street, we reached out and gently held hands. Thanks for saying no so clearly earlier. When I said that, Natalie looked away shyly. I know I probably shouldn't be the one to say anything, but I don't like it. The idea of you going to meet other women makes me anxious. She squeezed the sleeve of my coat as she said it. It was rare to hear such honest words from her, and it made my chest warm all over. I wasn't planning on going anyway. Just having you by my side is enough. And honestly, I've had more than enough of flashy mixers. Right? I feel the same. Just having you with me is more than enough. As she said that, Natalie gently rested her head on my shoulder. The lights from passing cars flickered across the pavement, stretching and fading our shadows. Natalie, thank you. Hearing you say no like that really made me happy. Natalie gave a shy smile at my words and gently hugged my arm a little tighter. A faint trace of her sweet shampoo drifted on the night breeze, softly tickling my nose. I wrapped my hand around hers and quietly leaned in to kiss her. It was only a brief kiss, but it felt like our feelings were slowly blending together, and my heart was full. All the unpleasant moments from that mixer, maybe they were just the turning gears of fate that brought us together. You never know what will spark a connection between people. What matters is whether you can turn that spark into something you grow from. And as long as you hold someone dear in your heart, I truly believe you can overcome anything.